everyone, if you want to get inspiration, motivation, and hacks about life, career, and writing, this is the channel for you. I am Errstories and welcome to Life Thoughts and Inspirations TV.
Hello everyone! I am happy to share with you na this coming 2021, I am planning on publishing more copies of my book, Hello There, David. And I will really need your support to raise enough funds for this self-publication. So hopefully you go be member of my channel and at the same time send your love by super chats and sending your super stickers as well. Maraming salamat po, and now to the video. Hello everyone! Welcome back to Life Thoughts and Inspirations TV. I am Errstories, and for today's episode of Conversations with Errstories, I am very happy because we have with us someone who proves that writing is for all ages as long as you have that story to tell. Miss Eileen Flaherty used to be labeled as a slow learner because she could not see the chalkboard. But later on, she made it to Wall Street, Washington, D.C., and the United States Supreme Court Bar. She wrote her book, The Perilous Step, at age 61, with the book making it to the top 20 bestseller on Amazon. Wow, that's super exciting to know. Yeah, the story behind that. So, Miss Eileen, welcome to Conversations.
Thank you, Elise. And thank you so much. It's such an honor to, have this conversation with you and your viewers. And I'm just really very happy to have this opportunity. You're such a positive person.
Yeah, and I am so happy as well talking to you because I know a lot of our viewers will be learning a lot of things from you and be inspired with your story. So yeah, at 61, you wrote the book. What inspired you to write?
There were, over the years, I had always wanted to write a book. And a friend of mine, years and years ago, had told me, she had given me, a former colleague, she gave me this red notebook. I'm sitting here looking at it. And she said, you really have to jot down your notes and write this story someday. And when I left DC and I finally had some time, when you're on a plane, when you're working 60, 65 hours a week, you can't do anything else. It's just not possible. You're not creative. And then when I left DC and I'm running a consulting business, I had the flexibility and I'm like, oh, I got to find that notebook. It's going to be in there. And I found the notebook in one of these bins and I'm like, oh gosh, yeah. It was blank. There was nothing in it. So, but getting to your question, what inspired me, there were two things. My nephews, who are like my sons, they're in college now. But my mom, she passed away when they were 3.5, 5.5, and my dad from a broken heart not long after. And it's 2 years ago this Christmas that the younger one, he said to me, I'm losing memories of Grandma. And because I was so young, and it just crushed me. I'm like, I can't let that happen. But when you write a book, I'm a first-time author, and I hope others will, hopefully get something out of this and pursue their book. You have to find an end, because you're thinking, okay, I'm gonna write a book, but what's my end? And so it was when I was on the plane coming back from Washington, D.C., after being admitted to the United States Supreme Court Bar, which is the most amazing day in my entire professional career. And it was like the aha moment. I'm like, I have my in. I have my in. And so the first chapter, so it was those two things together. So the first chapter, it really says, I can't believe I'm standing here. And I'm standing on the top stair of the United States Supreme Court Bar. I'm looking out at the Capitol in Washington, D.C. And it says, I'm the kid who was never supposed to make it, let alone to be standing here today. And so that was the impetus of the book.
Wow. I'm speechless with the story behind the book. And
I still tear up.
yeah, and later on we'll tell more about it. But yeah, so you started at 61, you were on a plane and you thought maybe I should write, but like how long did it take for you to really complete the book?
Elise, it's interesting. I wish I had known when I was doing it what I found out from my publisher later. New authors have a lot of self-doubt. They can have a lot of self-doubt because I would write it. I write in the first person, and I would write it, and then I would think, well, I'm not important enough. Who am I to write a book? Why does anybody want to hear about Eileen Flaherty? And so I would just like push it aside. I'm like, it's not good. And then I would take 2 weeks off. I live by the lake in Chicago, and so I'd take long walks and get my confidence back. If I take out those, times when I needed those breaks, all in it was 2 months. This book wrote itself. I'm lucky. I have a very good memory, and like from when I was 3.5, with the horse. So I wanted a horse. Of course I wanted a horse, and but there was nowhere to put a horse. So I remembered vividly back to 3.5 when I wanted a horse, and my grandfather, who would have given me anything, went to my mother and said we should have a horse, and she's like, there's no way there's going to be a horse in this backyard. So it really 2 months, and the hard part of being a new author is finding a publisher. It's incredibly difficult. So I thought, all right, I'm going to give myself a year to try and find a publisher. And if I can't, I'll self-publish. But my preference was to have a publisher. And the first one, it ended up being one of these vanity publishers. Basically, I, threw away $4,000 on, it basically took $4,000 from me. It was a good lesson. And people who are in this space and starting out, you have to be very careful. You should not be paying anybody to do anything if they're actually a real publisher. And then I was kind of going to just give it up. And a friend of mine who I used to work with, I knew he published his own books, and I met with him and I said, I'm really frustrated. And I had accidentally sent him my book. And he said, I said, can you help me find an agent? I'm new at this and I'm ready to give up. He said, your book is a really good book. I'd like to publish it. And so it was like, aha. And so I was just so grateful. Well,
but it's fast. 2 months is fast.
It really, I'm a lawyer. This is my first time book. So I've done a lot of writing, but more technical writing over my career. And it was so invigorating to be able to do something creative for the first time in my life, and not, legal boring, I mean, look, it's a good living, don't get me wrong, but it was so liberating to be able to do something creative. And, I actually ended up getting COVID during the process, because I'm one of these obsessive compulsive people. And during the editing process, my editor was brilliant. And she would send me a round of edits and with suggestions, but the author has to do it themselves. And so if she would send me a version at like 8:30 at night, I would automatically spring out of bed at 3 a.m. with no alarm, and I would work until midnight. And they didn't give me any deadlines because they know my personality, my obsessive personality, and because I just wanted it to be the best that it could be. And so I think we did at least 6 rounds of that. And so I was just so run down that you end up getting sick. But you know what? I got no complaints.
Wow, and now you're full of energy sharing with us your story.
Thank you.
That's so good. Okay, now let's go to, because you said like it's 2 months, the hardest part is really looking for a publisher. But what are other tips that you can share to aspiring writers out there?
That's a really good question. I'm glad you asked, because I didn't have I didn't, other than that former colleague, and we had not worked together for several years. I didn't have anybody to bounce any ideas off of. I hadn't joined Facebook groups. I didn't know they existed. So a few things that I would say as tips: when you're doubting yourself, take a break. If you get a block, and take a break. I find that walking, brisk walk, along water or wherever you live, it just clears your head. It just clears your head. And then if you need to take a day or two off, just take that time off and then come back, and not to be too critical of yourself. And also, I would think, at least for me, I kind of mapped out the chapters that I knew I wanted to do, but I didn't write them necessarily sequentially. It's when it came to me, the idea of, Rocket Man, who literally was from NASA. And so when you get a chance to read the book, some of this is like really scary, some of it's really funny, it's motivating. It's kind of the story. If a gal like me, who was labeled the slow gal, can make it, then we all can make it. So I would say keep going. Try and get over the self-doubt. You'll have it. And don't give up on trying to find a publisher. But there's nothing wrong about self-publishing either. There's everything honorable about self-publishing, because in this business and industry, it's so hard to get a publisher. Self-publishing is absolutely a good way to go.
Wow. Thank you for that. And I agree with you. One of the challenges really for writers is being too critical about ourselves. Like, you write down and then you edit right away. So it's no. Okay, so do you have any writing motto that you live by?
The writing motto, well, I keep going. Just keep going, and just keep going. I'm writing a second book now.
Wow.
It's a little bit very different. It's a little bit slower because I'm writing it about a coach. I live in Chicago, and there's some very dangerous neighborhoods in Chicago where people are just gunned down for no reason. And I'm writing it about a coach who saves lives, and he has a basketball team, and his goal, he has a job also, but he's a coach. His goal is to keep these kids in Englewood in gyms so they're not gunned down aimlessly in the streets. And it ends up my nephews played on their team. We were the only Caucasians in the building, and I always felt safe in the building. But I'm writing the book it's not about me, it's about him, because he's an unsung hero. He's got some health issues, so it'll take a bit longer. So some tips would be: write your first book, try and find a publisher. If not, self-publish. Do your second book.
Correct. That's true. Keep going. Okay, so what you've mentioned about your future plan and the story behind the book. Any other message that you wish to share?
I do. I love the foreword in my book. My book is The Perilous Step, and I shamelessly market it. I had T-shirts printed, I have face masks, I had baseball caps, because even if you have a publisher, even John Grisham has to do his own marketing. He does these podcasts from his garage. So even if you are fortunate enough to find a publisher, you really have to do your own marketing. And you have to spend, even no matter what job you have or your own business, you have to spend a certain amount of day marketing and marketing that book, because nobody else is going to do it for you. I think there maybe is a misperception. Oh, I have a publisher, and I'm going to end up on the shelf. And that's just, you got to do it all yourself. It's a weird industry where even if you have the big houses, you got to do your own. And so focus on that. The other thing I would say is be true to yourself when you write. My foreword, which I love, starts out, I write this book with gratitude. And I mean that. I mean that every single day, that I am so grateful that I had the grandparents, my grandmother I never knew, that I had the grandparents, and that I had my parents, and that just kind of be true to yourself in your story and what you're writing. And what I found is when you're true to yourself, people have gotten good reviews and that, and people have just said, I kind of like saw some of myself in that part. And I saw some of myself in the part where you had to sell your parents' house, and it was like the hardest day of your life when you have to let that go, the only home you've ever known, but you make a positive out of it. And I think be true to yourself, write for yourself. I wrote the book for my nephews, and so they would know more about their grandparents who they didn't have a lot of time with, but also to know more about me, and our family and our history. And if you do something like that, it'll resonate with people.
Very true. Thank you so much, Miss Eileen. I couldn't agree no more, because all you've said really are true and very inspiring. Yeah, I agree with, marketing the book, because especially you are the writer and you believe in the message of that book that you have to tell to the people. Wow. Thank you so much. This has been ERR Stories, and with me is Miss Eileen. Thank you, guys, and we'll see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Elise.
Thank you for watching my video. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, and share to your friends. And yes, always remember Philippians 4:13, I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. Bye-bye!